People who grew up in the 1970s carry a kind of quiet strength that's hard to explain to newer generations. They don't announce it, they don't flex it, but you can feel it the moment life gets difficult and they stay calm while everyone else panics. They were raised in a world without instant answers. No Google, no notifications, no constant reassurance. If something broke, they didn't replace it. They fixed it. If they were bored, they didn't scroll. They imagined. If they were lonely, they sat with it. That shaped their psychology in powerful ways. In the 1970s, time moved slower. Days were longer. Conversations weren't interrupted by buzzing phones. Silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was normal. This trained their brains to tolerate stillness, uncertainty, and delayed gratification. And that's something most people today struggle with. Children of the 70s learned patience the hard way. If you wanted something, you waited. Letters took days. Photos took weeks. Success took years. Their reward systems developed around effort, not instant dopamine hits. That's why many of them don't chase validation. They don't need likes to feel real. They don't panic when attention disappears. They learned early that life doesn't owe you constant stimulation. There's a story often told by people from that era. A child sits outside until sunset. No supervision, no tracking apps, no fear-driven parenting. They fall, they scrape their knee, they cry for a moment, then they stand back up and keep playing. That moment repeated thousands of times. And every time, resilience was wired deeper into their nervous system. Psychologically, this created adults who are emotionally self-reliant. They may not talk about their feelings much, but not because they don't have them. It's because they were taught to process emotions internally before expressing them externally. This is why people from the 70s often appear emotionally reserved, but emotionally stable. They don't overreact. They don't catastrophize every problem. They don't broadcast every pain. They were raised when privacy still existed. Another defining trait is their relationship with authority. They grew up questioning systems silently rather than rebelling loudly. Rules were strict, but not endlessly debated. This made them highly adaptable. They learned when to comply, when to resist, and when to walk away quietly. They understand power dynamics intuitively. And then there's their relationship with work. For them, work wasn't about passion at first. It was about responsibility, survival, contribution. This built a mindset where effort equals dignity. That's why many people from that generation feel uncomfortable with shortcuts, entitlement, or complaining without action. They were taught that competence speaks louder than opinions. One of the most overlooked psychological traits of people raised in the 1970s is their deep tolerance for discomfort, physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, mental boredom. They lived through it. They adapted to it. They didn't label it as trauma every time. This doesn't mean their lives were easier. It means they were trained to endure. Socially, they formed fewer but deeper connections. Friendships were built through shared experiences, not algorithms. Conflicts weren't unfollowed. They were confronted or silently accepted. This gave them a long-term view of relationships. They don't discard people easily. But once they do, they rarely look back. Their memory works differently, too. Without digital storage, they relied on recall. Stories were remembered, not saved. Faces were recognized, not tagged. This strengthened narrative thinking and emotional memory. That's why many of them are exceptional storytellers. But this generation also carries a quiet sadness. They witnessed the world shift from human-centered to screen-centered, from community to convenience, from patience to urgency. Many of them feel out of place, not because they can't adapt, but because they remember what was lost. They don't say it out loud often, but they feel it. They miss depth. They miss silence. They miss presence. Psychologically, people who grew up in the 1970s live with an internal compass rather than external validation. Their identity was formed before constant comparison became normal. This makes them less anxious, but sometimes more isolated in modern culture. They don't overshare. They don't perform authenticity. They just are. And that can feel threatening in a world addicted to noise. If you know someone from this generation, you've probably noticed something. When things fall apart, they don't post about it. They fix it. When chaos hits, they don't spiral. They assess. When trends change, they don't chase. They observe. Their strength is quiet. Their confidence is internal. Their psychology was forged in waiting rooms, open fields, handwritten letters, and long conversations that had no audience. And maybe that's why their presence feels grounding. Because they were shaped before the world became loud. If this made you think of someone you know, or maybe yourself, let that thought sit for a moment. Share this with someone who grew up in a different era, and let them see what shaped the minds they often underestimate. And if you want more deep psychological insights like this, about generations, behavior, and the invisible forces shaping who we are, stay connected. There's a lot more beneath the surface than most people ever notice.